Ralph who?
Right. No, Ralph wishes he could be here, but he was here last year, so we're gonna fill in for him.
And that is not a bad thing at all. Before you guys got in here, I was talking to the crowd a bit about this series and how it took off. This was a bit of a sleeper hit. They kind of took everybody by surprise.
Yeah, the show?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think people, when they heard about it, was thinking, is this going to be any good, or is this going to be, not so great? And we stepped into it, Ralph and I originally, and Marty came in at season 10, episode 10. But we cared about it like you care about it, even more. We are these guys, and Karate Kid is a sacred film, and it holds a special part of people's hearts. So if we're going to do this, it has to be done right. So we stepped into it with our hearts. We trusted our amazing writers, the guys that created the show, Josh, John, and Hayden, who are huge, mega Karate Kid fans. They're like, it was their Star Wars. For me, Star Wars is my thing, and Karate Kid was their thing, and they're just super talented. They got a lot of heart. All the heart you see in the show came from them first, and all the badassery came from them first. I worked with Josh Heald, who was one of the creators on Hot Tub Time Machine.
Oh, yeah.
He wrote that, and then the other guys wrote the Harold and Kumar franchise. And I knew them all, so I always wanted to work with them. They called me one day and said, come and have lunch, we're going to talk to you about a project. And so I thought it was going to be Harold and Kumar 6 or Hot Tub Time. And they said, so sit down, we're huge fans, and what do you think about playing Johnny Lawrence again? I said, well, that's it. It's like a girlfriend coming back saying, I love you. What can you think about that? So I said, well, then they told me their idea. And so you can't just go and do a Karate Kid sequel. You have to there's a lot of people who have to sign off on this, a lot of rights to get. So they said, well, we have Sony on board, and Jerry Weintraub's estate sign off, and Overbrook, Will Smith's company, everybody was already on board at that point. So they said, we just got to get you, and then we're going to write it. And I said, well, what's the next step after me? And they said, we have to go get Ralph Macchio. And I said, okay, good luck with that. So they went to New York the next couple days, and I had a meeting with him. Ralph called me, and I answered the phone. I said, I was expecting this call. And he said, man, all right, we got to look into this. So we stepped into it. The long answer to that comment was, we both stepped into it very carefully with our eyes wide open. These guys killed it, and we just jumped in, and now here we are, season 2, season 3's coming, and it's for you guys. You guys are all grown-up kids, so many adults in this room, you guys were like, in the movie theaters when it came out. It's unbelievable, now your kids are here, and so we're like all a part of this together, so it's an honor, and we thank you. We wouldn't be here without you guys, so.
Now, we've got a full house here. I want to let you both know we vetted the room. Everyone's seen both seasons, so there's no fear of spoilers at all for anyone. So it can be quite the free-for-all for you. I don't want to take up any time of theirs or yours, so I won't bother with any of my questions. But I know there's a lot of questions in the crowd here. So who's got a first question they want to do here? All right, go ahead. Stand up for us.
Okay. Hi, thanks for coming. One of the great episodes in the second season is episode 6, where the whole Cobra Kai back. Very emotional time. What I wanted to know, you guys mentioned that Dutch was in prison. Is there a conflict in the schedule that?
Yeah, he was in prison for real. I hope Chad's watching this. Chad McQueen played Dutch. No, Chad is, he was McQueen, Steve McQueen's son, and he runs the Steve McQueen racing team. So he had a conflict of schedule. We couldn't get him, but he was just the best. Maybe we'll get him sometime in the future. I'd love to have him back. He's amazing. It's great to work with the guys again. Yeah, Rob Garrison, Ron Thomas, Tony O'Dell, the original 3 of the Cobra Kais, and we're all brothers. Ever since the movie, we still hang out. Rob comes and stays at my house. We have barbecues. It's like, we're like old. It's like an old, high school friends or college friends. So we get to go out and put on our headbands or ride the motorcycle. Is awesome.
All right. Well, speaking of headbands in Cobra Kai, we got a question over here from the little man.
There's the little Cobra Kai.
Come on up, little Cobra Kai.
This is for you, Johnny. How does it feel to being the bad guy back in Karate Kid, but now in the new series, the good guy? And what about you, Kreese? Are you able to be the good guy?
question for Kreese.
Are you ever gonna be a good guy in the Cobra Kai franchise?
Now, you have to understand that my character is not a bad guy.
You broke somebody's arm.
Great heroes, Darth Vader, Hannibal Lecter, John Kreese.
Can we sweep the leg together?
You have to understand, let me finish. You have to understand that he just misunderstood. John Kreese just, two things he loves in his life more than anything else. Number two actually, is Johnny Lawrence. Number one is Cobra Kai. So Johnny got a little mixed up with, the integrity of Cobra Kai, and I needed to help him out. And just, set him straight, because he does have the potential to be Cobra Kai, and of course he is the Karate Kid. So I knew that, and I just stepped in to help a little bit, but he's not a bad guy.
Good question, brother. Good question.
Can we sweep the leg? though? Because last year, the Daniel son did the crane kick with me, so.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, so can we do sweep the leg?
I doubt he did a crane kick with you.
We got it on film.
We'll sweep some legs after, okay? Not right now. But that's a great question. How old are you?
8.
8. You got a good dad.
Yeah. We got another one. Oh, bring in the back there. Green, I'll come up to you guys. What do you got, brother? Come on up.
For Kreese, did he actually punch the glass when Miyagi dodged him?
Say that again a little louder.
Did you actually dodge? Yeah.
Did you actually punch the glass when Miyagi dodged the punches?
Oh, yes, right, yeah. Oh, there's an interesting story. The special effects man kept lunge and punch, lunge, punch, and the glass never broke. So he promised me that it would break this time in the 5th take. And sure enough, I didn't believe him, so I just punched and didn't lunge, because if I would have lunged, it would have gone all the way up. Bottom line was, it didn't break, and my hand went through it. And when I came out, there were shards of glass all sticking in the hand. And they taped me up, and then we did it one more time. And he swore it would break, because it's supposed to shatter an inch before you reach it. And the special effect of gunpowder lining the bottom of the door, of the top of the door, bottom of the glass. And bottom line is, it didn't. Even after I was taped up with new skin and all. So I turned to the director and I said to John Avildsen, I said, you know, John, this is not the hand of Arnold in the Terminator. And he says, okay, that's a wrap. So we used that scene whenever you watch the movie. Going in is real. It's real flesh. Coming out, we shot the next day, and all the blood is not my blood, thank God. And it's one of those things that just happens. It was the only time I really got hurt in the movie. Billy's gotten hurt a lot, but that was the only time I got hurt, though. But it's a good question.
Great question. All right, we got Johnny right up here. Johnny Skelton.
So I really love.
Can you just say all the same when he's had enough, man, real quick for me?
All the time when he's had enough, man.
Thank you.
I love season 1 and 2, but one of the most surprising parts of it for me was when Johnny said that the crane kick was illegal, and I had no idea where that came from. And so I actually asked Ralph about it last year, and he said that the ref said in the movie that no kicks to the face. So that was another surprise. So I went back, watched the tournament numerous times, and I didn't hear anything about no kicks to the face. Ali says the rules at the beginning, and she didn't say anything about kicks to the face. And in fact, Johnny kicks a whole bunch of people in the face.
That's
And like Dutch kicks Daniel in the face, Johnny kicks Daniel in the face. A lot of face
It's
kicks
fine
happen.
if we kick in the face, but Daniel LaRusso was not allowed.
So that's why Miguel could do the crane kick, and that was illegal, but only Daniel couldn't do it.
Yeah, there's a little gray area there, and that I think that the music was swelling so hard in the end of the Karate Kid. They missed the call.
The Cobra Kai was always allowed to kick in the face.
I mean, typically in the karate tournaments, it's no contact to the head, and especially and usually you have pads on, so there's a little bit of a creative license they had to let us go with no pads, but in general, if you're doing point fighting in a karate tournament, it's light contact to the body and no contact to the head. That's just kind of an understood rule. I think they stayed somewhere in there, I don't know. But true, there was plenty of punches, elbows, and all kinds of things that were, equally as illegal, but none of them earned a trophy. So, there were points taken away and all that, so I think, there's definitely an argument that may have been. I don't think anybody ever saw it. I mean, first of all, that kick, the crane kick, wasn't a real kick. It is now. I think La Hoya Machida in the UFC actually made it legitimate and knocked someone out with it. Before that, it was a make-believe kick, so no one ever saw it. They probably didn't know what happened, yeah, good question. I'm sure, Ralph would say did he say it was illegal or did he not answer that?
He said it was illegal because the ref said no kicks to the face.
Yes,
Yeah.
so he knows.
Awesome.
Thanks, Johnny.
Great question.
All right, thanks.
All right, I'll get you real quick. Come on. Yep.
So the original Karate Kid movies were really about, the power of standing up to a bully. But Cobra Kai takes that further because it starts to peel back the layers of each bully and what makes them bully, and the person who bullied them that caused them to, and the ripple effects of being both good and bad to people in life, and how that has really far-reaching effects. And I know this because we watched both seasons like 25 times.
Right.
Did you know when you read the original script that it was going to be that deep? Or is that just something that's kind of come throughout the end of the second season?
Well, reading The Karate Kid, I mean, it's really the story of a father and his, a father-son relationship, a kid and his mentor. And so the depth was in that relationship, and it was really about, martial arts was kind of the background of it in a way, or the face of it, but it's really about humanity. It's about a kid that didn't have a dad finding kind of a father figure and helping him overcome his obstacles, not necessarily overcoming his bully, because Johnny could say the same thing.
Right.
About that. But as I go into Cobra Kai, it's like, a purpose. Back in the days in the 80s, it was a little more black and white. It was a good guy and a bad guy. It was a little bit more cowboys and Indians or whatever, good and bad or whatever. Today, it's a lot more gray, areas of gray, and so it's great to peel back the layers of the characters and see really nobody's really all good and nobody's all bad. Like Kreese, what Marty said about Kreese is amazing, and what I love about the show is that each of us have our own perspective. If Rob was here, he would argue his perspective with his whole heart. And it's all the truth, so he doesn't see himself even as a bully. And in a way, he's right, because the principles of no mercy, there's a reason for that. And because no mercy was shown, what happened in season 2. So there's really, it's kind of a little bit about all of us, we all have our own points of view in the world, and it's kind of good to find a common ground.
And are we going to learn a little bit more about Kreese in season 3?
I believe we'll learn a lot more about Kreese.
Yeah, you see, they have all kinds of aspirations. Our writers are so on top of it that you can bring them ideas. I brought them ideas about him being, an Army Ranger, and I met with Army Rangers and talked about, Vietnam and all. They have their own ideas about everything, and it's very rich. They're very rich. And the bottom line is that, my interpretation of Cobra Kai of karate, has always been the offensive sport, while Miyagi treated it as a defensive art. So it's like Billy says, it's like your interpretation of Cobra Kai, your interpretation of karate. And the bottom line is, Kreese is a little darker, but it's still pure. It's not a violation of any kind. He is a pure character, and I want Billy to be as pure.
Yeah, but when we read the script, you couldn't see what was coming with that, and it was more black and white, as I said, and now it's like in all television and in movies today, it's a little bit more open-minded. You can kind of take your point of view, and we are exploring bullying and relationships and things like that. And there's a saying like behind every bully is a victim, first. So there's always a story. It doesn't give license for that person to go and bully someone else, but there's a story behind each person. If you can understand the story behind somebody else, then that's where we're going to find our common ground, our peace, instead of having all this all the time. So the show is doing that, exploring that. I think that's what's connecting, besides the fact that it's got some badass music and some baloney and Coors Banquet.
Awesome. Great question. All right, so I got one up over you had a question? And then you'll be next, okay? And then I got you and you. Come on up.
So has there been any discussion or thoughts of someone like Terry Silver coming back in, who, I know he bought Cobra Kai for you specifically, like when they mentioned it, you know, he bought that for you. And I was wondering when you started Cobra Kai if that was something that was in your rights to actually have the name Cobra Kai.
Yeah. Well, I remember. Yeah, no, I mean, when they pitched the idea, I said, wait a minute, first of all, I can't imagine Johnny going back to the snake that bit him. Because Cobra Kai, I mean, he woke up at the end of Karate Kid, so I'm like, so wait, he's going back to Cobra Kai, why is he doing that? Well, it's this many years later, it's the only thing in his life that worked. He's going to try to apply it right, and he thinks Kreese isn't even around anymore. So he opens a dojo, but of course, you know, I always said it's kind of like opening Pandora's box, and sure enough, you know, he jumps out, the snake bites him by the end of season 2. You know, Johnny's back worse off than he was in season 1. As far as Terry Silver goes, in Johnny's mind, he doesn't even know who Terry Silver is. And as far as the character coming back, anything's possible. So the guys are writing it right now, and anything in Karate Kid 1, 2, and 3, and possibly 4, I think is open. It's all the canon for the story, but the characters have to come in and land in a way that has a meaningful entrance into the show, and it's not just what we call the low-hanging fruit of, oh, there's Terry Silver, but it has to play in with it. So there's talks of, you know, nobody's not on the table. But I don't actually have the real answer for that because the guys are writing season 3 today, right now, so we don't know at all.
And Terry Silver...
Next week I'll tell you more.
Terry Silver was an invention because I couldn't do Karate Kid 3. I'd got a TV series called Hard Time on Planet Earth. So all of Terry Silver, everything he did in 3 was originally written for John Kreese. So there was no Terry Silver. And whether he'll be back or not, we don't know because basically we give them notes and they throw them in the trash. So we have no idea what's coming up. But yes, as Billy said, there are characters that, you know, I watched Deadwood and they brought all those old characters back 13, 14 years later, and it was fascinating. And that's what we did. We had this phenomenon where we found in all these panels that people love the initial Karate Kid 1 movie because it triggered either they were bullied as a kid, or they had a romance that didn't work, or they were a fish out of water where they moved around a lot. And everybody identified with the writing of Robert Kamen, you know. So we now have 3 writers that are as brilliant as Robert, you know. And so to answer your question, there's all kinds of alternatives that can pop up, and it moves everybody. Whatever decision's made, everybody's into it, you know.
All right, great question, great question. You had one night, go ahead.
Yeah. Hey guys. First of all, we both started drinking Coors Banquet just because of the show alone, so product placement is everything.
Right, it's really just...
Enjoy the apple juice. I love the apple juice as well.
You guys both look awesome. Did either of you have a martial arts background before the movies at all, or how did that come about? How easy, how difficult was that?
Yeah, I was on the beginning end of all the wave of all the karate that happened in the States because I didn't know any karate. I was a wrestler in high school, so I was very limber and I was kind of athletic. But when I read the script, I thought, you know, he's a black belt tournament champion and he's a motorcycle gang leader. I didn't ride a motorcycle, I didn't know a lick of karate. I'm like, there's a chance that this or happened. The last thing I did was a milk commercial, so I never seen was Johnny Lawrence in this thing. But then I read the ending of the script and saw when he handed him the trophy and he didn't want to sweep the leg. And I'm like, oh, so he's not all bad. But I didn't know any karate for it. We were trained for it by an amazing master, Pat Johnson, who's a legend, and he trained us really hard. We had a month of training before the film, and then every single day, 4 or 5 hours a day, 5 days a week, as much as we could when we were filming, to do the final fight in the tournament. And then that stuck, and then I trained for a while after that, and then did a couple of the martial and then on and off, and I had a couple kids that are in karate, so I started getting back into it, and then Cobra Kai rolled around, and now I'm back. Yeah. It's great if you're in martial arts. I'd say if you're not, kids, it's the greatest thing. It's a great discipline. It's great for everything. It translates in every area of your life. And you learn karate not to fight. Ever since I know karate, I've never had a problem. And before that, I had a lot of problems. No, I'm just kidding. That's not true.
I was actually training for another movie. It was a book called The Lion of Ireland, which was a book by Morgan Llewellyn about the Vikings taking over raiding on the Irish coast. And we were training with the Karate Foundation, but we were training in Kendo. And we were working for about a month, 2 months to prep this movie. And then it got canceled, and a month later I got Karate Kid. So I had a foundation, but Pat Johnson worked with us all separately. He trained he trained me separately, and then Billy and the Cobra Kai separately, and then Miyagi and Ralph's separately. So we had that great mystique going on, you know.
He's the referee in the Karate Kid, the mustache. If you don't know who Pat Johnson is, he's the guy in the center of it all. So he was here kind of making sure we didn't hit each other, really.
He was great.
Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Yeah, right, yeah, exactly.
He was actually Chuck Norris's partner in the tournament scene around the world in the 60s and 70s.
He was undefeated. He was like, they call him the living tree trunk. He was just a rock. And before Marty was cast, by the way, he was acting as John Kreese. So when he trained me, he would train me in character of John Kreese. And there's some stuff you can see on YouTube of that, where Pat Johnson is in the dojo barking, so he trained me with, he put the impression. I really give Pat Johnson almost all the credit for Johnny Lawrence, because he broke me down and built me up and taught me to think like a fighter and look like a fighter and think like one. And I don't know, I would have been completely clueless without him, really. So he gets all the credit. He's a legend. He's awesome.
Absolutely. I mean, he influenced everything. I took, putting my hands in the belt, and occasionally I watch him do this, and I took his ki-ites from him. That was his ki. He was very influential for all of us.
If I turn around, if I turn my back on him, he would literally sweep me to the ground. he was like, I'm going to teach you two ways. One is Pat Johnson, and one is Sensei Kreese. And sometimes I get Sensei Kreese.
Awesome. So we're going right back there. Go ahead, stand up.
I just want to know, you guys, it's been a long time since the original Karate Kid. Was it hard to kind of...
Sherry, what?
But was it hard to kind of get back to that mindset, that feeling that you had when you played Johnny, when you played Kreese, or was it kind of like putting on a good old comfortable pair of shoes? You know what I mean? Like, did you feel it right away, or did you kind of have to, this is crazy, first of all, all these years later I'm going back and play the same character, or was it more fresh, because it was a totally new, fresh idea?
It was both. It was like getting in the shoes that felt comfortable. It was also a lot of life that's happened since Karate Kid to now, so it's not like we went back to do a sequel from that day. So Johnny, in many ways, just like we all are, you're different than you were in high school. You're not the same person. So Johnny's not the same person. He's grown, he's evolved, maybe he's degenerated a little bit. He's gone backwards, he's stuck in the past, he's a bit of a fossil, but all that stuff was super fun.
Is that what made the decision to go back, though, because it wasn't going to just be like...
Yeah, for sure, yeah. You couldn't go...
Character.
Yeah, it had to be that. I told him, I said, listen, if you're going to just make him set up to go down again, I don't want anything to do with it, I don't want to double down on his jerkness. Huh?
Was it the same with you, Mark? Like, did you feel like, do I really need to go back and do this again, or can I add something more to the mythology? Or?
Well, when they came to me after Ralph and Billy had signed on, they said, we're bringing you back in episode 10, season 1, and you're going to set up season 2. And I said, why can't I come in on episode 5 or 6? And he said, and they explained why, and blah, blah, blah. But the bottom line was, I said, I really would like to, just as Billy said, I wanted to play this character more interestingly than a stoic bad guy, than a one-dimensional tough guy, as in Karate Kid 1, 2, and 3. And they said they'd write some vulnerability and they'd write some versatility to the character, and they did. I mean, my favorite scenes are when I come back with the trophy in episode 1, season 2. That to me, because, I love working with Billy, and everything, we've been together for such a long time that everything cooks, it's like all those feelings. We're different actors than we were back in, 83. And so you've got so much more to work from. And emotionally, in that scene in the shelter where I'm sitting with him and I tell him how tough it's been for 30 years. And we were in tears doing that, And you don't see John Kreese in tears. You don't think of him in tears. But these cats, they wrote it, And so they fulfilled all the things they said they were going to do. And I was very satisfied.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Definitely. Okay, I know I had you in the back there.
So during the white snake scenes where you were dancing with the woman, how were you able to keep a straight face?
Oh yeah, I gotta see the outtakes of that. I'm gonna post that sometime. I have all that footage. It's funny.
And thank you for bringing Coors Banquet.
Yes, are you enjoying it?
Oh, I love
Yeah,
it.
really, it's just the whole show is just a big commercial for Coors Banquet. Coors is behind this whole thing.
Product placement.
Coors get a lot of free press from this, I'll tell you.
And for the real band behind Rambo too, and the man who makes the tag name Lazy. Is there any chance in the next season you might find love?
Will always find love.
That would help everything, actually. He's a girlfriend, man.
I'm afraid of what kind of woman would go out there, though.
I have a snake collection in my house. You know, no.
It's romance. That'd be
It'd be great. That was something I did ask for. I said, don't discount to the writers, which doesn't mean anything. I said, don't discount a love affair. And they would nod their head. I mean, we come up with these great ideas, and we never know they're going to use it. I thought of how Cobra Kai got its name, and, they took that into consideration because, we don't really know, but I think it would be wonderful if he found a woman. I cannot imagine it.
So now we know why Elizabeth
What kind of woman he would find?
Oh, she'd be a buster. I mean, a bee buster.
Or she could be very spiritual.
She'd be dominant. She'd own you. It'd be awesome.
I hear Jack's available right now.
I don't know what you
Where's
could find.
Sensei? Thanks a lot.
Great question. Okay, get you in the back and then you next, okay? Yes,
I got a question. With Pat obviously not being able to be part of this, and obviously if he was part of it, I don't think it would work because the way that Ralph's whole character is really off base with where he thinks in life. But I'm just wondering, what's your favorite Pat memory ever on set?
Pat Burrito memory of
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was awesome. I mean, it was obviously, again, my first film. I met him the day in the back lot of Columbia Pictures, walking with Ralph and Pat to a training session. And I said to him, I loved him on Happy Days. I was a huge fan. And I said, if you see anything I can do different or better or whatever, please tell me. Let me know. And so instantly he became Uncle Pat to me, and I became BZ, and he would be, hey, Uncle Patty, BZ, And it was, the whole thing was fun, because we'd take us out to dinners, and we just got bonded. But it was the fence fight scene where Johnny is beating up Daniel at the fence, and it was, we did that for a long time. We shot that for a week at least to get it right. But during the rehearsals, I wasn't doing it too hard. I was kind of laying back a little bit, like grabbing him lightly and everything, and waiting, saving it for the camera. And Pat calls me, he goes, BZ, come here, man. He goes, listen, BZ, he goes, man, in your rehearsals, you gotta give 110%, buddy. 110%, baby, He goes, and now when the cameras are rolling, it's like bread and butter, man. It's like bread and butter. So I said, all right. So I went out and gave it 110%, and it's like, that scene is just so high octane. And a lot of that is because he tuned me up right there. So as an actor, that was great. And then when we did the tour, the publicity tour, around the world, he was going, we both took different parts of the country, and I was so nervous, doing this. Somebody's going to, news shows and all this stuff, and he would check up with me every day and call my hotel, and BZ, how's it going out there? I'm like, good. And so I felt like I had a comrade, and we stayed friends for all the years up till they passed. We talked every Christmas, every Thanksgiving, and he actually had an idea for another Karate Kid. He told me about. He's like, I think there's another Karate Kid for Miyagi. Like, I think they need to lay the rest. He said, I think he's gonna die, and they have to have a proper Okinawa burial. He wasn't finished with Miyagi, and he was a dear man, and we love him and miss him. And I feel like somehow he's a part of this somehow. Same with John Avildsen, who's not with us anymore, director. Jerry Weintraub, who produced it. Jimmy Craig, the cinematographer from Karate Kid 1. I feel like they're up there kind of having final say on all this stuff. So,
Yeah, Miyagi's laughing.
they're with us. The spirit of Karate Kid's with us. Yeah. What's that?
Miyagi's laughing at a lot of us.
Yeah, Miyagi's laughing. Man, it's too bad he wasn't around for all this stuff. You would have loved him, and he would have just eaten you guys alive. He was a stand-up comic,
Right.
So it was before all the Comic Cons and this kind of thing. So, great question.
Yeah, great question. The guy right in front of you there.
How often, if at all, do you guys deviate from the written script? And is there a big scene that you two have kind of had input in that kind of changed how they have done it?
I get, as far as deviating from the script, it's as scripted, but we'll challenge lines, we'll challenge some things here and there, and that's happened. It happened last season and this season. I won't get into specifics, but there's things where I'm like, I don't feel this, and the guys listen, and it was always going to be a two-way street collaboratively. So, I always felt like I was a shepherd of Johnny, like I'm the final gatekeeper of it, but that's not true anymore. And there were some scenes that I had to do where I'm like, I went home at night, I'm like, all right, Johnny's out of my hands, it's not mine anymore, it's these guys, and I'm just going on this ride. But, and then as far as us,
Well, they planned out everything. In other words, in episode 10, season 2, they knew he wouldn't let me do this now in any scene at all, except the last scene where I'm telling him, you made a mistake, you thank me for one. You'll thank me eventually for this, Johnny. They just knew where they wanted everything, and it was fascinating because we got lucky that there were 3 fans who knew everything about the movie left and right. God knows how many. I've done 4 or 5 television series, and you don't get writers and showrunners that live every moment of your character, and that's why everybody loves it so. When I did the first scene and I walked in and I said, but the real story's only just begun. And it was the first rehearsal. And I walked in there and I had the cigar and I was nervous. I was really nervous. And it was the very first rehearsal when I walked in and where I had to hit on the line, I had to say that line, but the real story's just begun, and smoke. And all of a sudden, I didn't know if I was doing it right. Cut. And I hear from the other end where the Video Village was in the dojo. All the crew and and they finally heard the real Kreese say their words, and I knew I was okay. I knew I was there because they just appreciated who you were,
All right, Nat in the back there.
For both of you, out of the 3 movies, what was your favorite scene?
Out of the 3 movies?
Yeah, what's your favorite scene?
My favorite scene is my first scene in the movie of Karate Kid 1 when I come up on the motorcycle. That's just because it was the first shot. Okay, all right, you guys like that too? That was my first scene ever in any movie. So just driving up on the motorcycle, that was the first day of shooting the film. That was my first day acting in any film. I'll remember that moment for the rest of my life, so that would be it. And the other one was when I did the spinning wrestling kick to Ralph on the fence. Just kidding, Ralph. I know you're watching this.
Yeah, but we watched that very scene. Ralph and I were doing a convention somewhere, and Billy wasn't there, and we were watching. They screened. I think it was Philly or New York or something, where they screened the movie, and then we were behind the screen watching the movie in reverse, the final scene. And it was so rich, even then we had seen it 20 times. And when that happened, and your favorite part of when you kicked, we had chills. And Ralph and I had seen it 20 times because it still worked for us 35 years later, watching it in reverse, from the back of a screen. And it was just so rich. And, though that ending, I think my favorite business was screaming. I mean, I loved the sweep the leg and wiping his blood scene. And
anything with blood, you like that?
I like that. But finish him was just, screaming, and that music cue of boom. It was just silly things like that.
My favorite scene in The Karate Kid is really, and I remember seeing it for the first time, and we just were in character. So I just did my thing, everybody did their thing, but it was in Westwood in the premiere of the show, of the movie, and it's when all the waxing and painting pays off, and Miyagi's in the backyard. He says, "Show me this, show me that." I mean, that was the first time ever that was seen by anybody, and I was right there, and I saw him do it, but with the music and all that, I was getting chills, and I was like, "This is awesome," I was like, love it, and then at the very end, like, "Oh wait, I know this ends, this isn't gonna go well." I was rooting for the wrong guy for a second.
And the finish him line, do you think Mortal Kombat stole that from you?
Well,
right? The finish him, you guys predated the Mortal Kombat. Finish him!
Well, that line was done. I did it almost under my, low, finish him when we were shooting. And I looped that line loud and, insanely, because John says, go for it. It's the crescendo of the movie. It's everything is on the line for John Kreese. So I just went for it, And we did it in the looping stage. And every time I see it, and that music cue, that boom, as the camera passes. I just love that. It's just what the whole movie's all about.
Yes.
That competition,
Amazing. All right, and this is side of the crowd there, right there. Go ahead.
Hi guys. Obviously the first 2 seasons being on YouTube Red, now YouTube Premium. Is it a contract you guys have with them? Because I know with all the views, obviously this could get picked up by one of the larger networks. So are you guys signed on for so many seasons with YouTube, or how does it work?
Well, we're signed on with, our deals with Sony. Sony has a deal with YouTube. So YouTube has the option of the show for, I think, as long as they want it. So they just have to keep renewing the option. Yeah. They've been awesome.
Amazing, great question. Do we have another one over there behind him or no?
No, I just want to make sure you.
Okay, perfect. All right, right in the back there, and I come over to you next, okay? And then I come to that side, you guys will be there.
Question for Billy, just curious, when you talked about seeing yourself for the first time in the first movie and how exciting that was. Which was more personally gratifying for you, doing that role or behind the camera, co-producing or co-creating host and nominated for an Academy?
Oh, wow, thanks for even mentioning that. Yeah, I did a short film that was nominated for an Oscar that I produced. Thank you very much. It's an honor just to be nominated. I'm one of the few people in the world that knows what it's like to not have your name called. You know, and actually you're clapping and smiling, and it was genuine. I was so relieved that I didn't have to go up and say anything. Yeah, I was thinking of all the people I had to thank, and I'm like, oh, it's not me, thank you. You know, like it was on the way home. I'm like, wait a minute, I should have. Anyway, but that's two totally different things and two completely different. I went to school before Karate Kid. I wanted to be a filmmaker, so I went to film school. So I didn't go to acting school to become an actor. I was doing commercials, and Karate Kid kind of stumbled on that, and it kind of stumbled into a career in a way. But my heart has always been behind the camera, writing, directing, and producing. So I did a short film, a real quick nutshell. We shot in Europe, in Prague and in Poland. It took 2 years of my life. I didn't get paid a dime for it. I, in fact, put my own thing into it, and I turned down work left and right. And it was probably the most fulfilling job I've ever had in my life. Doing it as a story I wanted to tell, had to tell. I lived every heartbeat of that. And the difference when I was going to the Academy Awards and I'm walking down the red carpet, right? At the first time I'm doing Karate Kid, I'm at Westwood at a premiere. And there's a break between the time you do your acting and then there's 6 months to 8 months and then you show up somewhere and then it becomes something. There's this big gap of time that you're not involved in it and you just have the memory of acting and now it's this thing over here. But when you're writing, producing, or directing, you're along that. It's like raising a kid. And you're like, every second you see every single stage of that. So I don't know, I would honestly say that was more fulfilling. And if I could do one of the two again, it would probably be the short film. You know, I also love Europe, so that's probably why.
Awesome, thanks. Great question. We had one back there, right?
Yeah. Marty, first of all, I loved you on Kung Fu: The Legend Continues as the Shadow Assassin. What was it like doing Garden Town on Planet Earth, and why did it almost not make it? It was such a good show.
Well, it was a very interesting series where it was written by the people that wrote The Predator, Jim and John Thomas, and it was a hard-edged show. And here was an alien, it was a good concept, an alien coming down from the stars to do good deeds on Earth and then return up as a revolutionary. But they hired a writer and 2 showrunners from Mary Tyler Moore and Simon & Simon. And they were very good at what they did, but they didn't write anything with an edge. You know, if you can imagine John Kreese being a literature teacher, you know, it wouldn't work, you know, he'd teach English literature. Can you imagine John Kreese teaching English literature? So that's what happened there, and it became a soft show, and it didn't last. We were opposite, I think, Donnie and Marie. And we lost to Donnie and Marie, right? The guys who wrote The Predator lost to Donnie and Marie. So it was one of those shows that you just were, at that time in my career, it was right after Cagney and Lacey, right after Cagney and Lacey. And I was still kind of, letting things go and not really objecting to very much, And so that's why that failed, But I really enjoyed that, and it was fun playing a good guy. Shadow Assassin was great because he was, in Kung Fu was the new version of Kung, just some of you don't know. It was Kung Fu Revisited with David Carradine. So we would go up and I'd do the premiere episode every time, and I was his nemesis. I was, the guy in a black Australian duster, and I could disappear at any given moment, and David Carradine could not defeat me. So that's why I liked it. I felt like I was really the hero. And, dark, but really the hero. So that was a lot of fun, to especially work with David, who I'd done, what did I do? Death Race 2000 with him. And it was great to just have fun again together, It's a shame he went off and died too soon. He was a lot of fun.
Good question, good question. I'm going to start at the back there, and I'm going to work my way around. Actually, I'll go there, come back, and we'll zigzag. What do you got, Spider-Man?
Me? Oh, cool, thanks.
Wait, no, sorry, what's up? Sorry, what's up? How is it playing a father now, and also, so, do you have kids in real life as well too?
I do, yes. How is it playing a father?
Yeah.
Well,
That's Johnny.
yeah, no, it's awesome. I mean, I have 2 kids. I have a 9 and a 5-year-old. I also have a godson who's 29, 28 yet. So that's, yeah, so I'm like 35 now. So, you know, I've got, you know, being there, I was there for my godson when I was much younger, you know, and I went through some stuff with him. He went through some tough times, and I was filling in a way. And I'm his dad, you know, in his heart. He's my kid in my heart. So there's a lot to draw on from that. And I love, you know, listen, when you get older and you live life, you have a lot more color and things you can bring to a character, and you know, and so all my experiences of fatherhood, of course, my heart and soul are my 9 and 5-year-old, and you know, it's hard. I'm away a lot, you know, like here I am in Niagara Falls yesterday, and you know, FaceTiming from the falls, you know, and now I'm over here, and now I'm over there, like, you know, like, what are you doing out there? They have no idea. If they saw me here right now, my kids haven't seen The Karate Kid, okay? Come on. Yeah, they haven't seen it. They're allowed to. They know I'm in it. It's not like they're not allowed to. It's just like, you know, they saw The Dog Who Saved Summer, though, the one I played the talking German Shepherd. They haven't seen me in a skeleton outfit beating the crap out of Daniel LaRusso yet. You know, I always tell Ralph, if I was his part, they would have saw it right when they were born. There's your fault. Remember that, you know? So it's been but now Cobra Kai's here, they've been on the set, they know Marty, I call him Uncle Marty, they know Pat, all the guys, everything, so, and they're eased into my life, but they have no idea what I'm doing here, they go to work. Yeah, I mean, Dad's a big part of my, huge, I mean, that's really where I want to be, you know? Great question. It's all for them. Yeah, so it's easy to love on these kids and be a dad to them, even though Johnny's a little more dysfunctional.
I saw your hand up first, so what do you? No, actually, the girl behind you, sorry.
So, question for Billy. I know you did a couple episodes on How I Met Your Mother, and you played yourself, but when you're first introduced, you're dressed as a clown.
Yeah.
And then you have to fight with Ted to be Barney's best man at the wedding.
Yeah.
So I was curious how, like, what influence that you had on that role compared to what the writers were telling you. And if you think, because the whole premise of that was that Barney is like, he's the real Karate Kid, and like, that kind of influenced the Cobra Kai.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, all the above. I don't know if it influenced Cobra Kai, but I think it was one of the, there's many things that fell in place to make Cobra Kai come to fruition, and one was this music video I did back in a whale, Sweep the Leg, and Ralph did a funny video called Wax On, Bleep Off, and Marty did an episode of Goldbergs, I did this. I mean, it was kind of like all these pieces of the puzzle. It was like pop culture was kind of still not done with us somehow in that way, you know. When they called me for How I Met Your Mother, they just called me up. I knew Barney Stinson was a fan of Johnny Lawrence's, and they said, would you like to be on the show? I said yes before I even read the script. They sent me the script, and I'm a clown. There's no dialogue. I'm like, this is the same. He came to see my face, you know, the whole way through. And then at the end is, you know, if you haven't seen the show, but it's Barney's bachelor party, and he wants the Karate Kid there. And so Ted and all his buddies get Ralph Macchio. Ralph Macchio shows up. No, that's not the Karate Kid. William Zabka's the Karate Kid. And, you know, and then a clown shows up. You know, and then we're all having a fun night at the town. At the end of the show, he says, "Well, you did a great bachelor party, but you didn't get the real Karate Kid." And then the clown says, "I couldn't agree with you more." And off comes the nose, and off comes the wig, and then you know, there's the headband, and it's me, and that was the ending. And that was all it was supposed to be, really, in the whole bit show. And that turned into more. I mean, the response to that show was so great that they wrote me a character as myself in season 9, and I had no input on it. And I taught myself a good lesson. When you're working with those caliber people, that caliber writers and directors and actors, you just say what they write, you know what I mean? It's like, I'm not gonna come in there and be like, I have an idea, you know, for a show that's like 8 years super hit on the TV. So I went in and they were great. They wrote a really funny bit for me. I know this, that one of the creators, Craig Thomas and Carter Bays, said, Craig told me at the rap party, he said that he had a dream somewhere in season 2 or 3 of How I Met Your Mother, and then he had to wake up and write it, I think. And it was that Barney Stinson saw Johnny Lawrence is the real Karate Kid. And he scribbled that down and he said it helped them understand the character of Barney Stinson. And that was way back in the beginning, and so they adhered to and alluded to Johnny all the way through up to my entrance. And I thank them because they put me back. I mean, it was like being a baseball player and going, all right, get back in the bigs, you know, hop off the bench. And you're like, what? Now you're at a table with these amazing, talented actors, superstars, and great writers. And you know, to go toe-to-toe with those guys was awesome. So they really, they brushed me off. And I'm always forever thankful. I just saw Kobe Smothers at the Billboard Awards, and I said the same thing where I was thankful for that. So there you go.
Awesome. Great Canadian Kobe Smoke.
Yes, that's right.
All right, right in the back there with the mask. I don't know what that Legion of Doom. All right.
So the remake with Jaden Smith, clearly it isn't karate. It's completely kung fu. They admit that it's kung fu. Do you guys think that it even deserves the name Karate Kid?
What are you talking about? They did a remake? Listen, we were at the premiere of that movie, and both Marty and I, we sat behind the guys that played the version of us, and it was a good movie, and I don't think it's become a classic in 30 years from now, but it served that generation. I'll tell you a really funny story though, and it's funny, we're working with Overbrook, but at the after party, we went to the after party, there was Will and Jaden, and Will introduced, Jaden, I want you to meet, it's Billy Zabka played Johnny, and hey, how you doing? And he goes, I just want you to know, Will's like, I just want you to know, we're just paying homage to the Karate Kid, we're not trying to disrespect it or anything. I said, I know, I get it. I said, I'm doing the same thing with the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I said, it's just me, it's in the valley, I go, it's just an homage. He's a great guy, what a heart.
What did you think? There were so many people that were up in arms at how dare they could make this movie, how dare, I did a couple of radio shows, and these people on Fox, I forgot the shows, but, they were really uptight, and they would say it, how dare they make that, and you had to actually say, and I think Jerry Weintraub told me, he says, when you go on these shows, you just tell them, calm them down. Because it's a good movie, and it was a good movie, and it made $250 million worldwide. It did well. But the bottom line, it did not compete with Karate Kid 1. It just paid homage to it. And Will Smith was very conscious as he approached you, he approached me, and he said, did we do your character justice? Yeah, the guy says no mercy, and it's translated on the bottom, no mercy, and he says it in Chinese. And you and I cracked up. Billy's sitting behind me, and I turned around, and you put your hand on my shoulder as he said, "No mercy," and we just cracked up.
It was just weird to see what you did. First of all, to find out they're making a remake of something you're in is a horrifying feeling. You know what I mean? It's like you're old enough to be in something that's being remade.
Oh,
it's being made again. You're like, what? Yeah, but we watched it. Yeah, sure, we were watching it. We didn't read the script, so. Yeah, when they said no mercy in Chinese, it was that. It was just like, wait, this is too
right. Nobody reacted.
Too bad.
Yeah, but it did. It paid homage to the film, and it actually put a hunger, I think, in it. But it actually did a service to Karate Kid because it got people talking about it again and saying, oh, you got to see the original too, to your kids. You got to see this one. So I think that movie had it. It was great. Listen, Overbrook is Will Smith's company, and they're part of Cobra Kai. So they were the first people. Caleb Pinkett, who's Jada's brother, was one of the first people that they went and pitched it to, and he said, I love it, we love it, and they're 100% on board. Will Smith's part of the show, so we're grateful for that, and it's a great partnership.
Very supportive. I think of John Kreese as Tony Montana, from Scarface. Very supportive.
I think we have enough time for maybe 2 questions. So I got you, and I will
get Miss. She's been waiting.
Oh, I didn't even see you over there.
Go first.
You go first, okay? Come on.
You just look like you have a good question. If it's not a good question, we're gonna have to sit
I
back.
saw you yesterday.
Sweep the leg, just kidding.
I hope you like it. I saw you yesterday. We brought you the radio and the body bag.
Oh yes, I remember.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was wondering if the sensei would grace us with the mantra and have us chant it. And Johnny, I was wondering if you could chant it with us.
What's the mantra? We used to do the mantra.
Fear does not exist in this dojo.
Fear.
She wants you to say
Can we
fear does not
get
exist
you
in
to
this
chant it
dojo.
for us, and then we'll chant back?
We'll end with that. How about that?
Okay.
There you go. Yeah. Sound good?
Good question.
Yeah.
All right. A good one for us all to end on. All right, so we put it right to John Kreese then, right?
No, we have another question. We're gonna.
Oh, okay.
Question, and then we'll end.
All right, then. There you go. Last one right there.
When you guys read the script for season 2, and you read that Tommy was actually going to pass away and get zipped up in a body bag, what was the feelings? I watched it, and I was like, I had to watch it 2 or 3 times. Is it, full circle?
Yeah,
Exactly.
Well, before they wrote it, I mean, I have, they told me about it in 6 months in advance, like, this is what we're thinking about happening to the guys. And they said that Tommy's sick and all that. I was like, oh man, don't do that to Tommy. But it was right, it worked. And all those guys, they earned a spot on the show. That you never know. Just because Tommy was zipped up doesn't mean you can't see Tommy again. So it was tough. That was a tough one to play, a tough one to do. But Rob Garrison, who played Tommy, is just genius in that episode. So yeah, I read it was tough to read though. But that's real life,
Absolutely.
I mean, Cobra Kai never dies. It's zipping up.
Maybe the bag got left open a little.
He's mostly dead, The Princess Bride, he's mostly dead. Season 3, opening thing is the zipper coming down. Cobra Kai. Never done.
We have one writer who's a little darker than the other 2, so his idea was the zipping up as I'm intercutting with me screaming and yelling, Cobra Kai never dies. And then you have a Cobra Kai dying, but the concept is, of course, that Cobra Kai never dies. Cobra Kai members die. Cobra Kai never dies. And I thought it was brilliant. Dark, but brilliant.
Very good.
It was well written. Well written, and some great questions here for you guys. Before we end with the big chant there, how about everybody just stand up and give the applause to these 2 gentlemen.
Fear does not exist in this dojo, does it? No, Sensei! Pain does not exist in this dojo, does it?
No, Sensei!
Defeat!
We have a routine. Defeat does not exist in this dojo, does it?
No, Sensei!
Dismiss!
Thank you. Team dismissed.
If you guys are ready, we'll do that selfie with the crowd here.
Wait. All right, people. Somebody got to take it. All right, everybody make sure you're in.